3 in the morning. A privileged account just logged in. The alert is on your screen, and the interviewer is watching you. So, what do you do first? If your answer is, I would escalate to Tier 2, and you stop there, you have already failed the question. Because the escalation is not the answer. The triage you do before escalating is. So here is what they are actually waiting to hear. First, where did that login come from? Then, has this account authenticated at all in the last 24 hours? And is 3 in the morning even normal for this user? Next, the one candidates forget, was there a multi-factor prompt? And if there was, did somebody actually approve it? After that, look at the workstation, any other alerts on that machine. Then the VPN logs, which tell you where they really connected from. And finally, is that account signed in somewhere else at the same time? That is 7 checks. They take about 90 seconds. Now, you escalate. And now the escalation is worth something, because you are handing Tier 2 a picture instead of a ticket. 9 questions are coming, including the take-home stage almost nobody warned you about. And by the end, you will have the passing answer to everyone. One caveat, and I will repeat it all the way through. That scoring breakdown comes from a single staffing firm that places SOC Analysts, published in May 2026. One hiring desk, not an industry standard. So wherever something rests on one recruiter's pipeline instead of a survey, I will say so on screen. Because hiring rules quoted as universal law usually are not. 9 questions, in the order a real loop asks them, each with the answer that passes, and the answer that ends it. If that is useful, subscribing genuinely helps. One of these goes out every week. So that was the one they open with. Question 2 is the one candidates bluff most. How would you handle a problem you have never seen before? An analyst who worked the floor and now writes for Hack the Box gives an answer that sounds far too easy. Google it, or ask a colleague. And that is not laziness. It is the whole point. Because the skill being measured is how fast you find an answer to something unfamiliar, which is the actual job every single shift. But the follow-up is where candidates separate. Once you have solved it, you write the standard operating procedure so the next person on shift can handle it without you. And then you ask the question that actually gets people hired. Should we build a new alert to catch this next time? Or tune an existing one so it stops crying wolf? The wrong answer is bluffing expertise you do not have. And if you genuinely freeze in the room, say so. Then explain exactly how you would go and find the answer. That is a pass, which brings us to the round you cannot bluff at all. Question 3 puts a raw email header on a shared screen and asks you to read it. One hiring desk runs this for about 10 minutes. The strong answer is a sequence, not a feeling. Start with return path against from. A mismatch there is your first thread to pull. Then walk the received chain from the bottom up, checking the reputation of each hop as you go. After that, authentication results, where SPF, DKIM, and DMARC either pass or quietly fail. Then, reply. 2, and whether the originating IP sits on a completely different network than the sender claims. And finally, Xmailer, which sometimes names the sending tool outright. The wrong answer is, it looks suspicious, I would report it. That describes a feeling instead of reading a field. Every interviewer has heard it 100 times. But here is the good news nobody tells you. This is completely drillable. Try Hack Me and Let's Defend. Both have phishing rooms that teach this exact sequence. Anyone telling you it cannot be prepared for is selling something. You just read a header field by field. Question 4 goes the other way. It wants speed. Name the port and tell me what an alert on it means. 8 of them come up again and again. 22 SSH, 25 SMTP, 53 DNS, 80 HTTP, 443 HTTPS, 445 SMB, 3389 RDP, and 3306 MySQL. Now, here is the trap. The wrong answer is 443 is HTTPS. That is a mapping. Any flashcard app knows it. It tells the interviewer nothing about whether you can work a queue. The strong answer says what an alert on that port means. So 445 is lateral movement over SMB. 3389, exposed to the internet, is remote desktop that should not be reachable at all. And 22 is where the brute force lands. The same round usually includes the TCP three-way handshake. One hiring desk describes their grading here as binary, though that is their description of their own pipeline, not a published rubric. Question 5 moves to Windows event logs, and this is where I can hand you a 2-second differentiator, because most interview prep on this exact topic is wrong. 4624 is a successful logon. 4625 is a failed logon. And the default logs are security, application, and system. Now the part that separates you. Logon types are not event IDs. They are a field inside 4624 and 4625. So if you say the 4 event IDs are 4624, 4625, type 3, and type 10, you have just told a hiring manager you read a cheat sheet instead of a log. The taxonomy is type 3 is a network logon, type 10 is remote desktop, and type 7 is a reconnect. Say that out loud correctly, and you are already ahead of most of the room. And there is one wrinkle worth knowing. With network-level authentication on by default, an RDP connection often logs a type 3 first from the pre-authentication, then a type 10 for the new session, or a type 7 when someone reconnects to a session they left open. Which means saying RDP is type 10, full stop, is not quite right. Small thing. But interviewers who run the platform notice it. So far, they have asked what you know. Question 6. Hands you an artifact and watches what you do with it. In excess of 2,000 failed logons. Event ID 4625, logon type 3. Roughly 1 second apart. Username, local admin, 1 workstation. The wrong answer is block the source IP and stop. But there is a subtler wrong answer, and it is the one smart candidates give. Saying the 1 second rhythm proves it is automated on its own is not enough. Because plenty of harmless things authenticate on a metronome. Service accounts, scheduled tasks, a stale mapped drive still trying an old password. It is the cadence and the volume together. 2,000 attempts in a short window, 1 second apart, that is what makes brute force the leading hypothesis rather than a guess. And the follow-through is what gets the offer. You go hunting for the 4624, the one that succeeded. Because 2,000 failures do not matter nearly as much as 1 success. Then you reason about local administrator password reuse across the estate, and whether this is the first hop of lateral movement. You mention LAPS, and you talk containment, and whether that host gets rebuilt. That one rewarded curiosity. Question 7 punishes it if you are not careful. There is an unknown executable on a workstation. What is your first move? You search VirusTotal for the file's hash. Not the file, the hash. Because if that binary is bespoke tooling built for your organization, uploading it can tell the attacker you found it. Some actors watch VirusTotal for their own samples, and uploaded files become downloadable by enterprise subscribers. But here is the trap in the other direction. This is where a lot of candidates overcorrect. Saying never upload as an absolute is also wrong. The guidance is hash first, and then, if the hash returns nothing, uploading is a legitimate next step. An interviewer who knows that trade-off wants to hear you name it, not recite a prohibition. And know where your lane ends. For a Tier 1 analyst, the VirusTotal lookup is roughly as far as you are expected to go. Sandbox detonation and deep reverse engineering belong to the next desk. Everything so far has been a question. Question 8 is not. It is a stage, and almost nobody makes content about it, which is exactly why candidates walk into it cold. A managed detection provider hands you 3 alerts and a written report due in 2 hours. And then there is the live round, which is the one that scares people. You write a query on a shared screen while someone watches. Splunk, SPL, Sentinel, KQL, sometimes YARAL or Elastic, with autocomplete switched off. And the failure mode is not getting the syntax wrong. It is freezing, because a blank screen tells them nothing. So the method that survives is to sketch the logical structure in pseudocode first, out loud, and then write the working query. Minor syntax mistakes are survivable. Pseudocode alone is not. You do have to land the query. Sourcing on this one is thin, and I will say so. 1 anonymous industry post, and 1 recruiter's pipeline. The stage is real and documented. It is not a measured industry standard. That stage tests whether you can build. Question 9 tests whether you can fix. This rule is noise. It fires hundreds of times a day and everyone ignores it. Fix it. The strong answer is a method, and it starts with evidence. So you pull the last 100 firings, cluster them by source, destination, user, and host, and find out what is actually generating them. Then you apply targeted suppression for that specific benign pattern, without changing the detection logic underneath. You document why, and you set a date to review it so the exception does not quietly become permanent. The wrong answer is raise the threshold and stop there. And notice the precision here, because this matters. Raising the threshold as the output of that clustering analysis is a perfectly good answer. It is stopping there that fails. And disabling the rule outright scores worse than either, because you have not reduced noise. You have removed a detection and left a hole nobody remembers. Those 9 are the loop as it has always run. This last one is new, and it is the reason I made this video now rather than a year ago. Quote, the SIEM's AI summarizer says this alert is a false positive. You disagree. Walk me through how you escalate that. It is appearing because the triage queue is quietly becoming a verdict queue. Analysts increasingly confirm or challenge a conclusion, a model already reached. And black box reasoning is the thing security leaders trust least about it. So the strong answer names the specific evidence the summarizer did not weigh. You keep the alert open, and you escalate with the artifact, the log line, the hash, the session, not with your opinion. The wrong answer is folding, deferring to the tool because it is the tool. And I will flag the sourcing honestly. One staffing firm published this off the record with no named employer. The trend is well documented. The scoring is that recruiter's characterization. Everything so far has been content. This part is delivery, and it fails more candidates than any technical gap. Answer the question that was asked. Then stop talking. The classic failure is nailing hashing versus encryption, then launching unprompted into cryptography and blanking halfway through. You talk yourself out of a job you had already won. On the walkthrough round, hiring managers keep describing the same failure. Candidates reciting a playbook line by line instead of thinking out loud. So narrate the reasoning. Name the trade-off. Isolate now or preserve forensics. And say why you chose. Then the behavioral one. Tell me about an incident you got wrong. Admit the specific mistake. Name what you learned. Describe what you would do differently. Honesty alone is not the win. Honesty plus the process change is. Keep it to about 90 seconds. And one tactic, candidates repeatedly credit with turning a fumble into an offer. After the interview, email the interviewer the answer you could not produce in the room. It costs nothing, and it demonstrates the exact skill from Chapter 2. One last round, and it runs the other way. When they ask if you have questions, 6 of them tell you whether this job is survivable. First, what is the shift pattern and how long is the rotation? Then, is there night differential? How many alerts does one analyst handle per shift? And who was on the Tier 2 escalation path at 3 in the morning? What has analyst turnover been in the last 12 months? And this one matters more than it sounds. Is tuning part of my job, or am I forbidden from touching the rules? And now my take, which I want you to argue with. The rapid-fire ports round should be a red flag about the employer, not a test of the candidate. Not because fundamentals do not matter. Learn all 8. I just gave them to you. But look at what Chapter 2 established. The strongest answer to, how do you handle something you have never seen, is, literally, go and find out. So a SOC that screens on recall, when the answer is 1 Alt-Tab away, which is exactly what the job permits all day, is telling you it grades memorization over reasoning. So when they finish the ports round, ask them this: how do you score the walkthrough investigation? If they have an answer, good. That is a SOC that watches people think. If they do not, you have just learned how they will evaluate you for the next 2 years. So tell me I am wrong. Is the ports round legitimate fundamental screening, or a tell that the SOC grades recall over reasoning? Drop the round that actually decided your interview in the comments, the exact question, and whether you got the offer. I read everyone.